The question hit Maria Santos like a cancer diagnosis all over again. Standing at the Family Feud podium in her faded blue dress, the same one she'd worn to every hospital visit for the past 8 months, she felt the familiar crushing weight of watching her child die slowly. The studio lights felt too bright for a woman who had been living in the dim corridors of Children's Hospital for what felt like forever. "What's your biggest fear?" Steve Harvey had asked, and those 4 words unlocked a terror so deep it threatened to consume her completely. Maria's hands trembled as she gripped the podium, thinking about the empty hospital bed, where her 8-year-old son, Diego, was spending what doctors said would be his final weeks. The silence stretched as she tried to find words for a nightmare no parent should ever have to live. It was Tuesday afternoon at the Family Feud studios in Atlanta. The Santos family had made the difficult journey from Children's Hospital in Dallas, where Diego was receiving palliative care for acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Maria's sister Rosa and their parents stood behind her at the family podium, offering silent support for a woman who was slowly watching her world crumble. The game had started with Maria's heart already broken. The Santos family was competing against the Johnson family from Georgia, and Steve was working his usual magic with the crowd. But Maria couldn't focus because every moment away from the hospital felt like stolen time she should be spending holding Diego's hand while she still could. 8 months ago, Diego had been a normal 8-year-old who loved soccer and video games. Then came the bruises that wouldn't heal, the exhaustion, the infections that wouldn't go away. The diagnosis had arrived like a sledgehammer: acute lymphoblastic leukemia, aggressive, already advanced. The treatments had been brutal. Chemotherapy that made Diego violently sick, radiation that burned his skin, bone marrow procedures that left him screaming in pain. Maria had held his hand through every needle, every procedure, every night when he cried for the pain to stop. "Burying my child," Maria whispered into the microphone. The words came out like a death sentence, raw and unfiltered. The studio fell completely silent as everyone processed the devastating honesty of her answer. Steve's face immediately changed as he realized the depth of pain behind her words. This wasn't just about abstract fears. This was about a mother preparing to bury her son. The cameras captured every emotion crossing Maria's face as she struggled with a reality too horrible to accept. "Tell me about your son," Steve said gently, stepping closer to Maria. His voice carried the weight of someone who understood that some stories required acknowledgement rather than comfort. The audience leaned forward, sensing they were about to hear something that would break their hearts. "Diego is 8, Maria said, her voice full of love and desperation. "He's been fighting leukemia for 8 months. The doctors," she paused, unable to continue for a moment. "The doctors say he has maybe 2 weeks left." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The audience gasped audibly as they tried to comprehend what Maria was facing. "He's in the hospital right now," Maria continued, tears streaming down her face. "I shouldn't be here, I should be with him. But he insisted I come because he knows how much our family needs the money for his funeral." The brutal practicality of her statement hit everyone in the studio like a physical blow. Here was a mother whose dying child was worried about the financial burden of his own death. The cameras captured the raw honesty of grief without filters or pretense. Steve Harvey made a decision that would define this moment forever. He looked toward the production team, and then back at Maria. "Where is Diego right now?" he asked, though he already knew the answer would be heartbreaking. "Children's Hospital in Dallas," Maria replied. "Room 314. He's been there for 3 months now. The doctors moved him to palliative care last week." The clinical terms couldn't mask the emotional devastation behind them. "Does he know?" Steve asked. It was a question that cut to the heart of every parent's worst nightmare. How do you tell a child they're dying? "He knows," Maria said, her voice breaking completely. "He asked me last week if he was going to die, and I couldn't lie to him anymore. He said he wasn't scared as long as I wasn't sad. But I am sad," she continued. "I'm dying inside watching him suffer. I'm angry at God, angry at the cancer, angry at myself for not being able to save him. The honesty of her rage was as powerful as her grief. Steve recognized that Maria was carrying guilt alongside her sorrow, blaming herself for something completely beyond her control. The audience was openly crying as they witnessed this mother's raw anguish. "What does Diego want most right now?" Steve asked. The question shifted focus from Maria's pain to her son's needs, offering her a chance to talk about Diego as a person rather than a patient. "He wants to see me win something," Maria said. "He made me promise to try my best today because he said if I won money, maybe I could stop working so much and spend more time with him." The sacrifice behind her words was staggering. Maria was working multiple jobs to pay for Diego's medical expenses while spending every free moment at his bedside. The prize money wasn't about luxury, it was about buying time with her dying son. "He also wants to talk to you," Maria added, looking directly at Steve. "He watches Family Feud every day in the hospital. He says you're funny and you make the pain hurt less when he laughs." Steve's eyes filled with tears as he imagined this brave little boy watching his show from a hospital bed, finding moments of joy in the midst of his suffering. The connection between entertainer and audience had never felt more personal or meaningful. Behind the scenes, producers were frantically working to set up a live video call to the hospital. This had gone far beyond typical game show territory into something unprecedented. A dying child's wish being granted on national television. "Maria," Steve said, his voice thick with emotion, "we're going to call Diego right now. I want to talk to him, and I want you to tell him you love him on television, so the whole world knows how brave your little boy is." The production team worked quickly to establish a video connection with Children's Hospital. Within minutes, they had Diego's room on the line, and his face appeared on the studio's large screen. The 8-year-old looked frail and pale, but his eyes lit up when he saw his mother on stage. "Mama," Diego called out, his voice weak but full of excitement. "You're on TV. Are you winning?" His concern was for her success rather than his own pain, showing a maturity that no child should have to possess. "Aye, baby," Maria said, her voice breaking as she saw her son. "I'm trying to win for you. Are you being good for the nurses?" The normalcy of their conversation was heartbreaking given the circumstances. "I'm being super good," Diego replied. "Miss Jenny gave me extra juice because I took my medicine without crying." His pride in small victories showed how different his world had become from that of other 8-year-olds. Steve stepped forward to address Diego directly. "Hey there, little man, I'm Steve Harvey. Your mama told me you watch my show every day." The kindness in his voice was evident to everyone watching. "Mr. Steve," Diego exclaimed, his face lighting up despite his illness. "You're so funny. Can you tell me a joke? The medicine makes me feel sick, and jokes make me feel better." Without hesitation, Steve launched into one of his family-friendly routines, and Diego's laughter filled the studio. For those few minutes, he wasn't a dying child. He was just a little boy enjoying a conversation with his favorite TV host. "Diego," Steve said after the laughter died down, "I want you to know something. Your mama is the bravest woman I've ever met. She's here fighting for you, and you're the luckiest little boy in the world to have her as your mama." "I know," Diego said simply. "She's the best mama ever. When I go to heaven, I'm going to tell God how good she is, so he takes extra care of her." The matter-of-fact way he spoke about death was both heartbreaking and inspiring. The conversation continued for several more minutes, with Diego asking about the game and encouraging his mother to keep playing. His concern for her well-being, even while facing his own death, showed the depth of love between mother and son. When the call ended, the studio was completely silent, except for the sound of people crying. Steve looked at Maria, who was sobbing openly, and made another unprecedented decision. "We're going to stop this game right here," he announced. "This family doesn't need to play games to win today. They've already won everything that matters. They have each other, they have love, and they have more courage than anyone should have to possess." His words elevated the moment beyond entertainment into something sacred. Steve turned to address the cameras directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you've just witnessed is why we do what we do. Not for the laughs, not for the prizes, but for moments like this, when we can remind families that love is the only thing that really matters." The producers announced that the Santos family would receive the maximum prize regardless of the game's outcome. More importantly, Steve's foundation would cover all of Diego's remaining medical expenses and provide financial support for the family during this impossible time. The episode would become one of the most watched in Family Feud history, not because of the game, but because viewers witnessed pure love in the face of unthinkable loss. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people reached out offering support, prayers, and donations. Maria returned to Dallas immediately after the taping, and Diego passed away peacefully in her arms 6 days later. His final words were about the day his mama was on television and how proud he was of her for being so brave. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people who had never met Diego but had been touched by his story. Steve Harvey delivered a eulogy that celebrated Diego's courage and his mother's love, reminding everyone that some lives, though brief, leave permanent impacts on the world. Maria used the foundation money to establish a fund for other families facing childhood cancer. Diego's room in their house became a memorial filled with letters from children around the world who had been inspired by his bravery and positive attitude. The video call with Diego was watched millions of times online, becoming a source of comfort for other families facing terminal diagnoses. His laughter and courage in the face of death inspired medical professionals to focus more on quality of life and moments of joy for their young patients. Steve continued to visit Maria regularly, and they developed a deep friendship based on their shared experience of that powerful day. He often said that Diego taught him more about courage in 10 minutes than he'd learned in 40 years of life. Today, Maria works as a patient advocate at Children's Hospital, helping other families navigate the impossible journey of childhood terminal illness. Her experience gives her unique insight into the needs of families facing their worst nightmares. The dress Maria wore that day hangs in her closet next to Diego's favorite superhero costume. Both serve as reminders of love, courage, and the preciousness of every moment we have with the people we love most. Diego's legacy lives on through the foundation that bears his name, the families who have been helped by Maria's advocacy, and the reminder that even in the face of death, love and laughter can still bloom. His story proved that some 8-year-olds have more wisdom than most adults ever develop. The medical community began using Diego's story in training programs, showing healthcare workers the importance of hope, humor, and humanity in treating terminal patients. His infectious positivity changed how doctors and nurses approached end-of-life care for children. Maria's strength became legendary among other cancer families. She began speaking at conferences and support groups, sharing how she found the courage to let Diego go while keeping his memory alive. Her message was that love doesn't end with death, it transforms. The annual Diego Santos Memorial Golf Tournament raises funds for childhood cancer research and family support services. Maria organizes it every year on Diego's birthday, turning a day of sorrow into a celebration of his life and a source of hope for other families. Letters from children around the world continue to arrive at Maria's home, with kids sharing how Diego's story helped them face their own challenges with more courage. His legacy of bravery ripples outward, inspiring strength in unexpected places. Because some children pack entire lifetimes of wisdom into just 8 years, and some mothers find ways to turn their deepest grief into the most powerful love. Maria Santos thought she was facing her biggest fear that day on stage, but she discovered that love is always bigger than fear, even when fear looks like death itself. The miracle that happened on that Tuesday afternoon in Atlanta reminds us that some conversations transcend entertainment and become testimonies to the human spirit. Diego's laughter from that hospital bed proved that joy can exist even in the darkest circumstances, and Maria's courage showed the world what unconditional maternal love looks like. The weeks following Diego's death were the darkest of Maria's life, but they were also filled with unexpected light from strangers who had become family through shared grief. The hospital staff who had cared for Diego attended his funeral, and many spoke about how his positive attitude had changed their approach to treating terminal patients. The support that poured in from around the world was overwhelming in the best possible way. Families from every continent reached out to share their own stories of childhood cancer, creating a global community of parents who understood Maria's unique pain. These connections became lifelines during the deepest moments of grief. Steve Harvey's continued presence in Maria's life provided stability during the chaos of early grief. His phone calls came at exactly the right moments, and his understanding of the power of their shared experience helped Maria process the magnitude of what had happened on that stage and in Diego's hospital room. The decision to establish the Diego Santos Foundation came during one of Maria's darkest nights, when she realized that her son's story could continue helping other families long after his death. The foundation's mission became threefold: supporting families financially, advocating for better palliative care, and spreading Diego's message of hope and humor. Maria's first speaking engagement was terrifying but healing. Standing before an audience of medical professionals, she shared Diego's story and challenged them to remember that their terminal patients were children first, diagnoses second. The response was profound, with many doctors and nurses changing their approach to end-of-life care. The annual visit to Diego's grave on his birthday became a pilgrimage for families touched by his story. What started as Maria's private moment of remembrance grew into a gathering of hundreds of people who came to celebrate Diego's life and find strength in community with others facing similar losses. The scholarship program established in Diego's name helps children with terminal illnesses pursue their dreams while they can. Recipients use the funds for everything from art supplies to trip to special camps, ensuring that sick children can still experience joy and normalcy despite their diagnoses. Maria's advocacy work expanded to include legislative efforts aimed at improving insurance coverage for childhood cancer treatments and palliative care. Diego's story became a powerful tool for convincing lawmakers that these issues deserved priority attention and funding. The relationship between Maria and the other families featured on Family Feud episodes created an informal support network of people who understood the unique experience of finding healing through television. They remained connected, supporting each other through various life challenges and celebrations. The hospital room where Diego spent his final months was transformed into a family comfort room, funded by donations made in his memory. The space provides a place for families to rest, grieve, and find moments of peace during the most difficult times in their lives. Maria's work as a patient advocate evolved into a full-time career as she completed training in social work and grief counseling. Her personal experience gave her credibility and insight that textbook education alone could never provide, making her an invaluable resource for families in crisis. The documentary about Diego's story won several awards and became required viewing in medical schools across the country. His impact on healthcare education ensured that future doctors and nurses would be better prepared to treat terminal pediatric patients with compassion and hope. Today, Maria's home is filled with photos, letters, and artwork from children around the world who have been inspired by Diego's courage. The living room has become an informal museum of hope, showing visitors that one small boy's positive attitude created ripples of strength that continue expanding years after his death.